And good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, wherever and whenever you may be tuning into this podcast. I'm your host, Matt McLaughlin, alongside Timmy Gorman. This is the Black and Blue Pod, the sports podcast where we will talk shit, brew some egos. But hey, it's all in good fun at the end of the day. Another weekend of free agency, of course, after we taped the episode before the Utah Jazz decided to blow everything up right after I posted. So that was great timing on our part. But Rudy Gobert officially on the move. We'll get right into it. Heading to Minnesota. Sucks to be that guy. Going to Minnesota, the Utah Jazz finally trade their big man after a lot of speculation, and Utah got a haul. Danny Ainge worked his magic yet again. Utah got 3 unprotected first-round picks and a top 5 protected first-round pick in 2029. So that's 4 first-round picks in total, stretching from 2023 all the way up to 2029. The only years that aren't included are 2024, 2026, and 2028.
26 is a pick swap too.
Yeah, exactly. 2026 is a pick swap, plus a handful of players: Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Walker Kessler, and Leandro Balmero.
Whoever that is.
Yeah. So it's basically Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, and Beverly is likely going to be bought out, according to some reports, right after that trade ended, and Jared Vanderbilt. So let's just jump right into it. Rudy Gobert has been on our shit list for a handful of years now, probably since we first started this podcast. And Ben Simmons got robbed of Defensive Player of the Year. Rudy Gobert's been on our shit list. But still, this is just Utah gets away with highway robbery, and Minnesota don't know what the fuck they're doing. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Timmy, what can you explain this to me, or are you as dumbfounded as I am?
We literally sat there on Friday, right? And we were like, minus the Towns extension and giving Brunson all that money, there's a lot of smart trades, right? And we both agreed. We're like that. No, they like GMs didn't lose their head. There were some good signings for not a long term, not too much money was handed out. There was maybe a couple questionable extensions, but those were teams forced into the corner. And we're like, but so far it's actually like not a crazy start to, like, you didn't have that oh shit moment. And then the Timberwolves said, hold my fucking beer. I'm going to fuck your weekend up and have everyone wondering what we did. I don't understand this. Once again, Danny Ainge has whipped up his voodoo magic and just absolutely stonewalled another franchise to giving him all this shit, protected or not. And Minnesota now basically has to rely on free agency. Good luck. No one wants to come to the Twin Cities. These are players that, and human beings that don't like cold weather. NBA players don't like cold cities. It's the reason Toronto can never get free agents. It's the
and
reason
Miami's always in the run with every free agent
no matter
on the market.
What. It's the reason Miami has been a contending team for the better part of 30 years.
Exactly.
It's the reason the Lakers left Minnesota to go to LA. Philly and Chicago are 2 big cities, and outside of Chicago getting lucky and having Pippen and Jordan stay loyal, what big free agents have they ever landed?
So so we're on the same page that no one wants to go to Minnesota through free agency. So on the flip side of that coin, I almost have to say that's why they had to make this move, because they felt like there's no other choice for us to get really a superstar other than if we go all in on trade. Does this trade make sense? Absolutely not. Rudy Gobert does not add anything on the offensive side of the ball. And you would probably counter that with, Karl Anthony Towns will take the offensive side, and then Gobert can fortify the defensive side of the ball. That shit ain't working, because Gobert has openly complained when he was in Utah that he wasn't getting the ball enough. He wasn't getting alley-oops and all that stuff. And if you want to throw his rebounding numbers out there, he's averaged over double-digit rebounds for the better part of pretty much every year he's been in the league. I throw those out the window completely, because now the way the game is, Steph has messed up everyone's brains to the point where everyone doesn't even care about defensive rebounding, and everyone
they're going to stretch them out. They're just going to stretch these guys out, and they're going to take both Gobert and Towns out of the lane. They're going to put them out there with small ball 4s and 5s, and they're just going to annihilate them on dribble drives and kickouts. It's their defense is going to be horrendous.
And what is the offense going to be? One side of the court, okay, it's going to be a Cat D'Lo pick and roll, D'Angelo Russell pick and roll. Okay, if that doesn't work, let's go to the other side of the court, Anthony Edwards and a Rudy Gobert pick and roll. And it just doesn't offer the versatility. That's why I really I really don't like Minnesota giving up Jared Vanderbilt in this trade, because he was a guy that could have offered them some wing coverage and maybe some offense in a 3-and-D type situation and move off the ball, kind of similar to what we've seen with Andrew Wiggins in Golden State, obviously, kind of moving without the ball. And it just, the only explanation that makes a little bit of logical sense is what Bill Simmons calls the new owner syndrome, where they just get so desperate as owners of owning an NBA team that they want to make a splash and make headlines immediately. And what do? Someone in the analytics department says, hey, we can get Rudy Gobert and A-Rod, and they all just sign off on it and don't really consider the basketball implications of this. And Minnesota has 3 guys now that they have to pay over $30 million in Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Gobert. So their salary is just going to be all types of messed up, because then they got that Anthony Edwards extension coming down the pipe.
It's coming right down the pipe. And, Russell's gone. I just don't know what for. But yeah. He's not staying there. But it's like, why did you have to give up both? Why did you have to give up all your draft capital? And like you said, like we just said, you have to make a trade for teams like Minnesota because you don't get big time free agents, But the other avenue is you have to sometimes get lucky and get a KG like they did, or back in the day, Isaiah Ryder, before he had a freaking mental breakdown and became what he became. But so why give up all of that? Like, why leverage it all for a trade for a guy who's not even a superstar, has declined so bad over the last 2 years, has been exposed in the last 3 playoffs, has an entire team just bitching about how they want him gone, including their star player. Now that star player too is also a diva and a malcontent, so you can put that in another column. But I just why mortgage everything for a guy that doesn't make you a contender? I don't understand it. You don't know what's going to happen down the line. What happens if Cat gets injured, or God forbid something happens with Edwards and you end up sucking so bad in 2025, but there's this can't miss prospect that you could have had, but now Utah has him because you gave that pick up. He could have it could have been like the Golden State thing where they just reload it and now they have the young and the old, and that Minnesota should have been looked like that right there. That Golden State thing is how every franchise should be looking at it. Not the same exact style of play, but get a core and continue to build around them. And as they start to get older, you got to start taking the draft a little bit more seriously. And whether it means acquiring draft capital by trading a player or two, or you get unfortunate and someone gets hurt after a couple titles. But I think that the way that Golden State did everything is so smart. It was like, hey, we'll suck for a year, but we're going to reinvest our future. So when Clay and Curry and Draymond need walkers to get around, we already have our next core right there. And they're learning from these guys who have won 4 titles. But Minnesota said, nah, fuck it. The ghost of David Kahn still lives in this front office. He haunts us. He's still making bad decisions for us. So let's just give everything up. And then you give up the players too. Like you said, between Vanderbilt, Pat Bev, and Malik Beasley, they sourced out, I have it right here, 15 rebounds per game. Let's see, about 15 rebounds per game, anywhere between 3 to 4 steals per game, and roughly about, let's give or take, 25 points per game.
Yeah, you're not going to get that type of offensive production from Gobert.
Vanderbilt alone is almost 9 rebounds a game. Cat doesn't rebound shit.
Yeah.
He's a soft ass big man. He does. There's a reason he spends all his time in it's like, I'm a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. I'm coming off that playoff run last year. Like, hey man, we're finally good for the first time in God knows how long. Like since KG in 2004 with Latrell and Sam Cassell. And you're excited. Let's get some more things. We got a young core. Maybe one of these next guys can step up. Maybe Vander will become a really solid 3-and-D guy. Maybe Malik Beasley stops, putting his dick in every girl that walks by and having fraternity suits and can focus on the court. maybe we hit on one of these draft picks. Like maybe Walker Kessler turns into something. But no, they just give it all up. So now what? They have 3 players on max extensions. Another one who is their future, who probably a couple of years away from being a legit superstar and understanding truly what it means to be one, that's going to need that extension in two more years. You've got to find someone to take D'Lo. You're probably going to get 30 cents on the dollar, if that, for him. And now you have no future endeavors unless you somehow find someone to take Cat, and that's what they're thinking. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I think they just kind of got so swept up in the first playoff appearance since KG, and you're contending in a series, and
because they did make that one with when Butler was on the team still.
Oh yeah,
but they got knocked out in one round. They wasn't even competitive against the Rockets.
Yeah, but so let me retool that statement. You're on the verge of making the second round appearance since 2004, and you kind of and as a fan, it's easy to get swept up in the like, oh, the future's bright. Let's capitalize now on the window. But this is not the way to do it. What the Warriors did with Poole and Moody and Wiggins is exactly what in the NBA and the NFL, Bill Belichick did for 20 years with the Patriots. He will continue to do so until he dies, but acquiring either younger players through the draft, such as a Julian Edelman, Wes Welker in free agency, Gronkowski, who no one would think that Gronkowski would stay healthy enough to play 10 years in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Warriors have done. And for whatever reason, the rest of the NBA is refusing to either catch on to that or at least accept that. You're kind of seeing that with Houston a little bit in building through the draft. But I think personally, they should have just, if it was more than all these players plus a first round pick, I would have hung up the phone if I'm Minnesota. I'm saying no. Like, I'm fine with giving up the players, but those picks are what I need because that can give me a young supporting cast to build around Edwards.
Exactly.
And maybe because I look at a guy, sidetrack. I look at a guy like Chet Holmgren. He is only the first of the wave of players like that who are going to be coming into the NBA. It's going to be some big power forward with handles like a point guard, and he's going to stretch the floor for you. And Chet is only the first of that. We just have no idea that he is the first, and there's going to be this huge wave. So if I'm looking at 2023, 2025, 2027, 2029, who knows where the big men are going to be by that point, or what the point guards are going to be at that point, where they could be supersized. Who knows? And it's just a lot to mortgage your future. That's mortgaging your future for the next decade. And we're seeing how it's working out with the Lakers, and that they can't get they can't give away Westbrook. He's like Phillies tickets. You can't give them away sometimes. And it's a terrible approach to take, in my opinion. And defensively, this team's going to be terrible. They're going to have to win in shootouts like they're the Wizards. And they've never finished in the top half of the league in points allowed per game since 2012 to 2013. I looked this up today. They finished like 18.
That's crazy they even did then, because those teams had no fucking defense either.
Exactly. And they only finished 15. So they're probably one bad game away from finishing below top half of the league.
That's true.
So, and it's continually gotten worse since Cat's been drafted too. 2016, they're 18th. 2017, they're 17th in the league. 2018, they're 24th in the league. 2019, they're 29th in the league. 2020, they're 29th in the league again. And this past season, they finished 24th. So where is that defense going to be coming from? No one. Because
wait, 24th on what? The points per possession?
Points allowed per game.
Oh, points allowed per game. Yeah, because somehow their defensive rating is 13th. That makes no sense.
Yeah,
how can you give up that many points a game and then your rating's 13th out of 30?
I didn't look into rating because rating sometimes goes over my head with some of the like calculations that they put in that formula.
It's like OPS. Like
yeah, exactly. And they'll throw in like steals and deflections and
stocks,
whatever. Yeah. So I was just looking at points allowed because that's all my caveman brain can handle. And it's just, I don't see how adding Rudy Gobert either elevates your defense to such a high level that you can somehow shut down a team like the Trailblazers that has a lot of wing talent and a lot of young talent, that's going to stretch him out. And as we saw in this Dallas series, the key to dicing up Rudy Gobert is stretching him out on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And Dallas is going to take advantage of that. Golden State is going to take advantage of that, especially with Clay getting a fully healthy offseason for the first time in years.
Memphis is certainly going to take advantage of that.
I would not be surprised if Memphis is active in the trade market to try and get some type of stretch center that they can get for cheap, especially with Jaren Jackson being out for months with like a foot injury. I think it's a stress fracture.
That's not good.
It's not good. But Memphis is certainly going to.
Brandon Clark better start learning how to shoot.
I'm sure he's already working on it. But there's so many teams in the West that this trade it boggles everyone's mind. And could Rudy Gobert prove us all wrong? Absolutely. There's always a minute chance of that. But I'm willing to put my money on the side that says Minnesota gets to a play-in tournament, if that, and then they get bounced again in the first round.
I just and the thing is, their GM Tim Connolly did a great job with the Nuggets.
He's a smart dude.
He did a great job with the Nuggets. They paid him all this money to lure him away, and this is his first big splash. And I get that it's with A-Rod and the new owner thing. I agree with that.
Plus, Tim Connolly has ownership stake in the team, I think, or equity.
Yeah,
or something.
I think they gave him stock hold. They gave him stock percentage or something. And it's like, you were so smart and how he was so smart and so savvy and how he assembled that team in Denver for all those years with Nurkic, or with, he had Nurkic at one point and traded him for a first, got Murray, he realized, hey, I'm going to sell him Gary Harris high. He's got clearly Jokic and all this shit. And, knows what Porter's going to be if he can ever stay healthy, but he looks like a star, and he was so smart. And he goes to Minnesota, and it's just like, they just, people don't know how to be patient. And that is exactly what Danny Ainge is. He is the most patient GM this league maybe has ever seen. Him and Jerry West, I guess, maybe. Because West, everyone forgets, was a great architect for years too. And,
True.
Other Boston Celtics, like Red Auerbach and stuff like that. But
they were but the difference is that the time that they were working in,
right
like now with like Twitter, everyone's quick to say, oh, the Warriors are done, or the Sixers will never win anything with Embiid. With the Celtics, it was, you got to break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And Ainge has somehow figured out
screw you. Well, I'll do it. I'll do what I'm going to do. And the fans' voices are definitely play a part. But I just, like I said, does David Kahn just haunt that front office? And the second you walk in there, you just become stupid.
A force field of stupidity.
Yeah, it's just like you literally have like a 200 IQ, and you walk in, and you're like, color green, what? I wouldn't expect this after everything Connolly did in Denver. It just boggles my mind. But in the new owner thing, that's a great. I think that is actually a great point that Simmons and Marcelo made. And it probably has something to do with that. But you would think A-Rod would have some sense. He knows, he has an idea of what to do. It's not like he's just some mathematician geek. He understands what it takes to build a roster. I don't understand how you can look at that playoff series that they just went to and said, you know what we need? Another guy over 7 feet that can't help us on defense, and it's going to make us more vulnerable to the 24th rating we had. No, you need a point guard. That's what I would have said. Because John Morant tore you apart every chance he got. Because Tyus Jones tore you apart every chance he got. Desmond Bane tore you apart. Dylan Brooks tore you apart. You needed a guard. You needed someone to help out Anthony Edwards. And you did the exact opposite of that. You went and got the French stilt that is just going to wilt when it comes to playoff time.
That's fair. And I guess we'll see what happens with, how Minnesota somehow fucking competes.
But so on Utah's end, got to look at it from that. So into the 2023 mix now, you got to like their haul. You never know. And with the way it's looking, these Minnesota draft picks are probably going to be pretty good in the latter end. And even if not, even if you don't hold on to them, Ainge is notorious for being able to use draft capital to get what he wants. So you never know. They're clearly throwing their hat into the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get it. Danny is notorious for, if I don't have a contender, blow it up. You know, Simmons and Russillo made that very clear, and they're very 100% right. He doesn't have loyalty to people. Donovan Mitchell's the next one packing his bags because, as I said earlier, malcontent. He ain't going to want to be on a team that is bottoming out. Whether they're really just in for Wembanyama or they're just in to see if they can get one of the top 5 to 10 picks next year, you know, I think everything. My problem with the Wembanyama sweepstakes is that, like, I just don't understand when people are going to stop getting overexcited every year because of some mixtapes. Like, this has worked on certain occasions. Luka was certified gold. We knew that, okay? I think everyone that knew basketball knew that. But, like, for every Luka, there's 7 freaking Nicholas Shitkavilis and, you know, Yijin Lins and all these guys that everyone thinks is going to be the next Dirk or the next KD or the next Luka or, you know, such a next Tim Duncan, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
What they just need to get into their heads. That's not happening. You're never getting KD part 2. You're never getting Charles Barkley part 2. Whether you want to say Zion is that or not, he isn't. He'll never be Charles Barkley. You're never getting Dirk part 2. No other human is coming along that is going to be like Dirk Nowitzki. And people just need to stop trying to recreate it. And the second the GMs start doing that, I think it's the second they start to realize, hey, just because this French kid is lighting up the shitty-ass French division because he's taller and a little bit more athletic than most of these guys doesn't mean he's going to prove it. And I just think it's so funny that so many people were so wary about Chet Holmgren, but they're all in on this French kid who has the highest level he played at is like playing in the SWAC for D1, basically. And you know exactly what it is. It's because Chet's a dorky looking white kid.
Is that what? When you look at Chet, when I look at Chet, I feel like I could kill him with a fart. Like, he just looks so frail.
Then you watch him play, and he actually has some like to him, and he knows because his whole life that's what he's gone against. He showed up to that court every day and had everyone look at him and be like, who's this soft ass cracker? I'm going to come and dunk on his face. And then they get up there. He swats them away, takes the ball the full length the other way and dunks on them. And he's got that. And you saw it at Gonzaga at times. He's got that little bit of hostility, that edge. And it's just like, I'm not saying Wembanyama doesn't and he can't. I don't understand why there are so many, I don't know about Chet. But everyone's like, Wembanyama is the next Michael Jordan. It's like, what? Why?
Because it's easy. It's easy to buy into, and it's like, let's just
the looks. One looks like Sean Bradley, and the other doesn't, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's also part of a content thing of like if Chet came out this upcoming year, it would have been interesting to see how those two stack up, and maybe Chet goes number 1 overall.
It would have been that would have been a great, I mean, it would have kind of got annoying at the end, but it would have been a very interesting, you know, I agree. I think that would have been the proper comparison, but we don't get that. Instead, we just get you got these weirdo stat nerds out there like fucking Kevin O'Connor being like, oh, look, they're Wembanyama, like nuts for him. And it's like, cool. Last time I checked, played D1 basketball at the highest level on the number 1 seed in the tournament and was taking it out against real teams like Kansas and Duke and all these guys. And this guy's literally playing against Toulouse Louise and Auxerre and like shitty teams in the French first division, you know?
Well, and it's also like with Luka and Dirk and with Luka and Dirk specifically, the love for European players has shifted dramatically so much over the last decade plus since Dirk was around, and Pau Gasol, both Gasol brothers, that now people look in the European leagues and then they fall in love with them. Like, take in the Bulls, like Jerry Krause and Jerry Krause's love for Tony Kukoc. A lot of people at the time thought Tony Kukoc was soft, and that was the stigma around a lot of European players. But now it's changed so much that it's gone the opposite way of the pendulum, where people love looking at the European players because it's the perception of these European leagues have grown men and these guys are already competing at 16, 17, 18 years old. And a lot of that is the Luka. Hold on. A lot of that is Luka coming out of the draft and the success that he's had already in the NBA. But other scouts and GMs and analysts and pundits on TV are falling into the trap that because Luka did it, a lot of other European players are going to be like that too.
And you said it earlier too, the scope of like the social media and the coverage, like it's so different for any kind of sport. Like you couldn't watch a soccer game over here unless you had like a special package in 2010. And now you can watch every league, every major league, every weekend and every week throughout the year on any like on ESPN or Fubo or Paramount. It's so easy to get now. Like 10 years ago, not the case. And that's the same thing. Like, you know, would the hype have been for real as Luka in 2005 as it was when it came out? Like, and it's just like, and the thing is though that it's been like you said, you bring up Tony Kukoc, like, and it was a different perception back then. But those guys were doing it back then the same way they're doing it now. Like Kukoc and Jojan Petrovic and Vlade were tearing up those leagues when they were like 17, 18, 19 years old. Like they almost won a gold medal as like 20-year-olds. They were probably the only team that could have given the dream team any sort of test. They still would have got wiped off the floor, but it would have been a competitive for a little bit.
Yeah.
And they came to the league and everyone kind of questioned it. And then they changed that narrative. Like they changed the perception, you know, Kukoc on the Bulls. Drazen was an all-star before he tragically died way too short, or else he'd be a certified Hall of Famer. Vlade was an important player in this league for so many years. And then you got Dirk. And Dirk is what I think officially changed it, because it went from some of these guys are good to you have probably one of the 15 best players to ever play the game in Dirk. And that's what I'm saying. Like everyone was like, all right, we got to find the next Dirk. And that's how you got the Nicholas Tishkavilis and the Yi John Lins and all these guys that would just never amounted to shit. And then they had a course correct. And it was like Rubio was the next one. And the hype on Rubio was real. Everyone believed it. It's just injuries, and he got stuck in that situation in Minnesota, and he can never get that shot. Plus the NBA changed.
Yeah.
If he had come 10 years earlier, he would have been Rajon Rondo, and it would have worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
But he could never shoot, so it didn't. So yeah, that's just my thing. I just wish there was a little bit more caution still with these.
Yeah,
I hope when Wembanyama pans out, I do. I really do.
Yeah, you just want people to pump the brakes.
Yes, like cautionary tales abound more than there are success stories, and I just don't get how every year it's like they took the neuralizer from Men in Black, completely washed it away, and they just start over, and it's every year, and then they never admit it. Like O'Connor never admits all the draft. Like, remember how much he was in love with the dude on first of all, he was in love with Frankie Smokes. How's that working? He was in love with the dude on the Pistons, the other French guy.
Killian Hayes.
Yeah, loved him. How's that working out? But then everyone's like, oh, he really knows what he's talking about. This guy, Victor Wembanyama. I'm like, I'm pretty sure his success rate has got to be below 50%.
I don't know. But that's a whole different. That's a whole different discussion.
I just, like I said, cautionary tales, and I just wish GMs they could save their jobs a lot more often if they use precaution like Danny Ainge does.
For sure. So let's move on to Boston. Boston made a couple of good moves. They traded for Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers, and they also signed Danillo Gallinari. They picked him up after he got bought out by the Spurs. So in the Brogdon trade specifically, Boston only gets Malcolm Brogdon, and Indiana gets a 2023 first-round pick, Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, Nick Stauskas, Malik Fitz, and Juwan Morgan. Probably most notably, the only guys staying around there long-term are likely Nick Stauskas, Aaron Nesmith, and Daniel Tice out of that whole group. And they get a first-round pick in next year's draft. Yeah, Stauskas.
You know, remember that from the Kings draft room?
No.
When they were like the day they drafted Stauskas? It's such a great video. It's like it's a whole board literally talking about like 6 other players, and they just keep bringing up a new player. And every time they bring up a new player, Vivek just goes, Stauskas? Stauskas. It's like he
Oh,
couldn't.
I know exactly the video they're
And
talking
it was
about.
just literally like he just literally just kept saying Stauskas like until they finally were like, okay, Stauskas.
Yeah, exactly. I know the video they're talking about now. So there was a lot of noise about Boston needing a quote unquote real point guard. Marcus Smart even came out after the finals and said we were fine without a real point guard, referring to having Kyrie and Kemba. And they made it to the finals without those two, obviously. So this trade makes a lot of sense, but Brogdon's injury history just scares the living daylights out of me that you can't necessarily rely on him to be there every single day and even make it through the playoffs. And so that's Gallinari. Gallinari
75 games, right?
Yeah.
75 games is the most he's ever touched.
Yeah, and I think that was his rookie year when he won
his
rookie of the year.
And he's not come close since then.
Exactly. So maybe if Boston uses him as an off the bench role, that'll save him more and then like stagger his minutes almost. But at that point, if you're giving up a first round pick plus all these players and a young guy in like Nesmith, who still has potential, I think he's just been derailed by injuries and getting stuck in kind of a bad situation.
Yeah, he's still young too. He's still only 23 at most. He came out when he was 19, I believe, because he got to Vanderbilt at 17 years old. I'm here for all your Aaron Nesmith questions. I know everything about the kid. I followed him from day one of Vandy.
There you go.
As the resident Vanderbilt fan. And yeah, he can't be anything older than 23.
Yeah, so I'm just looking up Brogdon's stats. Most he's played is 75 games. The closest he's come to matching that is 64 in his last year with Milwaukee in 2018 to 2019. And then in Indiana, he hasn't played more than 56 games in a whole season.
Ooh. So that's 3 seasons in a row, right?
And last season, he only played 36. So if I'm Boston...
Caveat, that might have been because the Pacers were tanky, but still.
True. That's fair. But it's also just not... This is a very high risk, high reward maneuver for Boston. And I just think they were kind of like looking at the free agent market and kind of saying like, we can't necessarily get much of what we want out of this. Let's just, let's make a trade, give up a first round pick for next year. It's not like they mortgage the future, unlike Minnesota. And we give up some rotational players and some guys that weren't necessarily getting minutes. Kind of a good risk. It's still high in my opinion because the guy, you can't rely on Brogdon to be healthy throughout the whole season, but it's not like it was a total serious loss for Boston in giving up these pieces in the trade.
No, especially because what was the first round pick they gave up like next year or 2 years from now?
Next year, 2023.
Yeah, that's gonna be in the mid 20s. What's that gonna do? So yeah, that I'm fine with. It is a big risk. I think both of them are. Because Gallinari doesn't have the greatest injury history either.
And
he
Gallinari
doesn't play defense for a lick.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Can kind of stop your ball rotation if you don't really know how he works. But it's much needed. That I think everyone saw it came out of that series and said they need more wing depth. And they need another guard, and they went and did it. Now whether it pans out, you never know, but. It could be something that takes them over the hump and makes them champions, or it could just be the same tired mess with these two when they're back to square one. And like if they don't pan out, it doesn't mean Boston season's a disaster. Boston's still going to be a contender. It just means they're going to have to go try and find somebody else at the trade deadline.
No, and this is a fuck it, we're going all in type move.
But it's worth it. It's worth it. It's exactly worth it. This is a move by a GM. Very smart.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. It's a very smart move to at least try and maybe try free agency next year, whoever opens up on the market. And one aspect of Jason Tatum's game that really improved that I saw was his decision-making and his passing. And we saw in the finals when he does make bad decisions, it really hinders the team. And Gallinari is going to be a guy that's going to be just wide open in the corner off of a Tatum drive. Tatum will find him. And Gallinari is going to be playing up. Marcus Smart's a very good passer. If Jaylen Brown can improve his playmaking skills, that'll really open up points for Gallinari too. And Brogdon's a smart guy who doesn't necessarily make stupid turnovers. So for Boston, this is at least a good trial run to at least see if you can get a bargain. and get some upside out of these guys.
Yeah, and then like Derek White isn't necessarily your sixth man. He's depth that he when he becomes that, I think the pressure goes off of him and off of off of everyone else, and it just gives you more depth to have on the bench, and so we'll see. Like you said, it can either it's not going to make or break their season in terms of playoffs or no playoffs, but it definitely will have consequences to the title run.
Agreed. Last thing, another East contender made a pretty big splash. T.J. Warren's going to the Brooklyn Nets on a 1-year deal. And this is a guy that has only played 4 games over the past 2 or 3 years since he's been dealing with stress fractures in his foot. And for Brooklyn as a team that's dealing with KD trying to force his way out and Kyrie wanting to get out and go to LA, it makes sense on Brooklyn's end to get probably one of the best scorers on the free agency market. But again, similar to the Brogdon thing, are you going to rely on him to be fully healthy? If he is fully healthy, this is a great move by Brooklyn. This is an awesome move. You have an insurance plan whenever KD walks. Is TJ Warren the next KD? No, obviously not. I'm not that stupid. But TJ Warren does provide a scoring option, and we'll see what he can do as the lead scorer on a team in a big market. So he's going to get those primetime games and give a chance to see what he can do. 2 years, hopefully fully healthy, and maybe he can rekindle some of that bubble magic that he had.
I've wanted him on the Sixers for a number of years now. I know the injury history, but he's exactly what we need. He's exactly what, when he's healthy and he's filling the bucket up, he's everything I want Tobias Harris to be. Like, he just gets it, he's 15 to 17 a game guaranteed. He's not stellar on defense, but people aren't just running by him. And, he occasionally can be that guy that goes off for like 30 to 40 every so often to give your star a break for a night or two. And I just don't understand if this is what he was going for. I get the injury history, but I just don't get why the Sixers didn't inquire about him, because I think it would have helped out a lot. I really do. Instead of trying to recreate the 18 Rockets, like this should have been something else we should have brought in along with, instead of giving all those years to PJ Tucker. Like, why not shave one of those years off and give it to TJ Warren for a year?
Because I think what TJ Warren brings, not in the stat sheet specifically, but what he brings to a locker room is very different compared to and much more valuable to what the Sixers need right now compared to what TJ Warren would bring. Sure, TJ Warren brings some great scoring punch, but PJ Tucker brings an element of toughness that this team needs. And he's a guy that's has been around the league for a while. And if you listen to his interview with JJ Redick, he was talking about how much of a shithead he was with Toronto. And he can impart that wisdom on the younger guys like Tyrese Maxey, or maybe if Matisse Thybulle is still on the team going into the season, he can show them, listen, you got to put in the work. And Tyrese and Matisse, I'm sure, have done both those things. But I think more importantly, handling your business off the court and establishing a work ethic is kind of to win a championship is what's most important. And I think TJ Warren would have ended up crying and bitching about not getting the ball and not getting scoring opportunities and being on the bench or whatever. So
I still want PJ Tucker. I'm just saying, like, of the 3 years they gave him, shave one off, give him 2 years. And that doesn't even matter. Or maybe some of the money, but it's like, what, he only got like $5 million or something, right? Like,
it's a prove-it contract. Like he's trying.
That's all you need. And if he's an asshole, then he walks after a year. But you hope that with someone like PJ Tucker on the team, that would keep somebody like Warren in balance. And also, it's not like Joel takes shit from people. Like, let's be real.
True. That's very true.
It's just more so this, like, I feel like he would have been a great 6-man kind of off the bench. He would have been a great scoring depth that we so desperately needed last year off the bench. But we'll see with the guys they added. I liked, I said on Friday, I liked the Neil House edition. We'll see if he can take a step up. The other guy they got apparently was the G League MVP last year. We already have one of them in
D'Anthony Melton.
No, I like him too. I like that addition more and more every day. I know I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it was more so. It was like stop being allergic to draft picks. Daryl Morey's the complete opposite of certain GMs, where he's just allergic to draft picks, and it drives me crazy. But no, I do like the Melton thing when I realized how young he was and how much he actually averaged. I like it. No, the guy or whatever, or Devlin, or he's another guy they signed that was in the Rockets G League organization, and he was the G League MVP last year. It was like a 1-year deal, like Trevlon something, Coleman maybe or something.
Hold on, let me look it up. But yeah, the name sounds familiar. I just completely blanking on.
But yeah, we already have B-Ball Paul. He's a former G League MVP, and he's gotten better, a little bit better every year.
Oh, Trevelyan Queen.
That's it.
I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Yeah, I don't know how to properly say his name, but I didn't look at highlights, but from what I've been told from certain other people, he's got he's got a decent shot, and he's got a good drive game too.
You got inside sources in the G League?
No. Other friends that have looked at his stats. I wish. It would help us out, right?
Yeah, seriously. Give us some scoops.
No, it's just and it's a minuscule contract, so it's maybe one of those things to see hey, he wasn't getting a chance. What's the worst that can happen? He's just they're hoping that he's better than Korkmaz, and and at this point, I'm assuming Shake's gone, right?
No, they picked up his option.
Oh, okay. Well, Korkmaz is gone, right?
I really, really hope so. I haven't seen anything about Korkmaz yet. But anything can happen. And the Sixers are still trying to figure out a potential. I would imagine that they're trying to figure out a potential trade where they're probably going to try and package Korkmaz, Milton with Tobias plus some draft picks to really get that Tobias contract off.
Yeah, I just wonder who's going to take that. At this point, OKC.
Some team will be OKC. Some team will be dumb enough to take it.
I think the big chip is whoever Ayton goes.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty obvious that Suns and Sarver being a cheapskate screwed that up again.
Yep.
I think he's gone, unfortunately for them, and that's going to really hurt their title chances. So wherever that goes, it's clearly going to be to a team with payroll that wasn't as good last year, that they're hoping that they can maybe take a small leap to the 8th seed this year. So I think OKC might be one side, like you said, Sacramento. Although, who did they just add?
I mean, I know they got Keegan Murray.
They traded for Herter.
Yeah, Herter. That's what it was.
But that's not a lot of cap space. So,
which was a sneaky, which is weird to think that Atlanta has gone from. It's weird. I think losing Herter is such a low key loss.
Why do they do that?
Because they brought in DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, but Herter was a small forward, isn't he?
Yeah, but he was still. I mean, you could say that Herter
you get rid of Danilo, and then you get rid of I got that Danilo was there, but it's
but then they're also.
Collins.
I would imagine that they're probably trying to move that bogey contract too.
I forgot he's still there.
Yeah.
Okay, so, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. So Atlanta is a team that's just I feel like that's going to be a low key loss. The Warriors losing Gary Payton may be the biggest under the radar loss that I think has really.
For the money, though, I think they probably did the right thing. They're already going to be way over the luxury tax, and they're getting DiVincenzo, who we both love, who we think has never been used to his proper abilities, and already got the scoring punch. More athletic than anybody actually realizes in that league, and he's just got to go there and play his role like Wiggins did. And I think he will help. I think the intensity that Peyton brought is going to be missed, but for the price, they had to let him go. And I think DiVincenzo can slot in perfectly. He's got some swag. He's got some attitude to him. We've seen it at Villanova, and I think he will just another savvy ad by the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, and he'll get minutes coming off the bench to change in for Clay, and he can switch 1 through 3 and
right.
And that is exactly what the Warriors need to fill up the hole of like a Peyton or Toscano Anderson.
Plus, Moody is another year older. Kuminga, another year older. You still don't know what's going on with what's his name.
Wiseman.
Thank you. God, I could not think. I literally been trying to think of his name in my head for the last 20 minutes since you started talking about since you first mentioned Moody. Holy crap. But no one knows. Certain people think one thing, people think another thing. I think if he hasn't been moved yet, I think they want to use him as a future. And Draymond is very long in the tooth. And I'm not saying he's Draymond, but seriously helped him out on defense. And apparently, there was so many different there was so much speculation about why he didn't come back and did they want him to come back and yada, yada, yada and stuff like that. But I just, like you said, the NBA can surprise you, but I think he's sticking around.
Yeah, I think Wiseman, I think the Warriors didn't want to rush Wiseman and throw him into a playoff situation immediately when he's got pressure to really be the kind of the bridge between the Steph era and whatever the next era is. Jonathan Kuminga is my early pick for most improved player next season. What I saw from him towards the tail end of the regular season and
he's going to be a stud. He's going to be a stud eventually.
He's so good. As he gets more reps, the game is going to slow down for him, and he's going to be able to use his size and athleticism to his advantage. And I do not be shocked if Jonathan Kuminga has a big year next year. It kind of turns into that Pascal Siakam kind of Cinderella most improved guy that just kind of showed up and really helped the team that won a title still contend. And maybe he becomes part of that new core whenever the key.
And he's got the perfect person to look at in Jordan Poole.
Seriously, exactly. All right, so that's it. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Please help us out. Please, for the love of God. So that does it all. That's from Timmy Gorman. I'm Matt McLaughlin. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, here's hoping that there's no wild trades or free agencies as I stop this recording. Please, God, don't do it.